Technically, the Devil's Bible, also formerly known as the Codex Gigas, is what we consider to be the largest illuminated manuscript that we have on record.
This is an image of the devil and hell that is meant to terrify.
For centuries, the world's most mysterious manuscripts have whispered of forbidden knowledge, texts so unsettling that many believed they should never be opened. Among them stands one chilling legend: the Devil's Bible, a massive medieval book surrounded by dark rumors and impossible origins. But when Hollywood icon Mel Gibson spoke about it, curiosity exploded once again. Hidden within its ancient pages are stories, symbols, and secrets that have terrified historians for generations. Was it merely myth or something far more disturbing? What exactly is inside this infamous book? And why does it still unsettle the world today? The giant book that should not exist. Locked deep within the secure and carefully guarded chambers of the National Library of Sweden rests a book that many historians consider one of the most mysterious manuscripts ever produced by human hands. Those who are fortunate enough to see it up close often describe a strange mixture of admiration and discomfort. It inspires wonder because of its unbelievable size and craftsmanship. Yet it also creates a quiet sense of unease, as if the book carries with it a story far older and darker than the room in which it now sits. The manuscript is so enormous that it immediately captures the attention of anyone who enters the room. Unlike ordinary books that can easily be lifted with one hand, this one is so heavy that it usually takes two grown adults to move it from its display table. The sheer physical presence of the manuscript alone is enough to make visitors stop and stare. This remarkable book is widely known by the dramatic name, the Devil's Bible. However, scholars and historians refer to it by its official title, the Codex Gigas. The name comes from Latin and translates simply to the giant book, and the description could not be more accurate. The Codex Gigas is astonishing in scale. Standing nearly 3 feet tall and measuring roughly 20 inches across, it resembles a massive stone slab more than a typical manuscript. Its weight is equally astonishing. At approximately 165 pounds, this single book weighs as much as, or even more than, many adults. Because of these extraordinary dimensions, it holds the record as the largest surviving medieval manuscript known to exist today. But the size of the book is only part of what makes it extraordinary. The materials used to create it reveal an equally impressive level of effort and sacrifice. Instead of paper, the pages were made from parchment, specially prepared sheets produced from animal skin. Scholars who have studied the manuscript estimate that creating enough parchment for the Codex Gigas would have required the skins of around 160 animals, most likely calves. Each sheet is enormous, almost as wide as a small table, giving the entire manuscript an overwhelming physical presence. Within its massive covers are 620 pages filled with tightly written Latin text. These pages are not simply filled with one type of content. Instead, the manuscript is like an entire medieval library bound into a single book. Inside, readers can find religious writings, historical chronicles, medical knowledge, and detailed illustrations. Every page reflects careful handwriting and artistic precision, suggesting an incredible amount of patience and discipline from the person who created it. Yet even with all this remarkable detail, the Codex Gigas holds secrets that scholars have never fully explained. Careful examination of the manuscript shows that the book originally contained more pages than it does today. At some unknown point in history, 12 pages disappeared. Gibson said that these pages were not lost through age or damaged by fire. Instead, they were deliberately removed. Someone, long ago, carefully cut them out with a blade. The cuts are clean and intentional, leaving no doubt that the removal was purposeful. But the greatest mystery is this: no one knows who removed those pages, when it happened, or what information they contained. Historians have debated this puzzle for centuries. Some believe the missing pages may have contained forbidden texts. Others suspect they might have recorded controversial events or secret knowledge that someone wished to hide forever. Even without these missing pages, the Codex Gigas remains one of the most astonishing manuscripts ever created. Yet the deeper mystery lies not only in what may have been removed, but in how such a gigantic and detailed book could have been produced in the first place. The effort required to create it seems almost impossible for a single person to achieve, raising questions that continue to intrigue historians to this very day. What is the origin of the Devil's Bible? Who authored it? Let's delve into the details of Gibson's account of how the Devil's Bible was birthed. The monk who made a deal in the darkness. The mysterious story of the Codex Gigas begins in the 13th century inside a small and struggling monastery in a region once called Bohemia. Today, this land forms part of the modern Czech Republic, but centuries ago, it was a quiet corner of medieval Europe. The monastery where the story unfolded belonged to the Benedictine order, a religious community known for discipline, scholarship, and devotion. The monastery itself was called Podlajic Monastery. It was not a grand or wealthy place. In fact, historical evidence suggests it was rather poor and lacked the resources normally needed to produce large and expensive manuscripts. That is why the existence of the Codex Gigas remains so puzzling. The manuscript is enormous, far larger than any typical medieval book, and creating such a work would have required vast amounts of parchment, ink, time, and skilled labor. Most historians believe that a monastery as poor as Podlajica should never have been able to produce something so massive. Yet somehow, this extraordinary book appeared within its walls. Medieval legend offers a dramatic explanation. According to the tale, Gibson explained, a monk living in the monastery committed a terrible offense. Exactly what he did has never been clearly recorded. Some stories say he broke his sacred vows as a monk. Others suggest darker actions, sins so serious that later monks may have intentionally removed the details from the written records. Whatever the truth, the punishment given to him was severe. The monks decided he would be sealed alive within the walls of the monastery. There, trapped in darkness, he would slowly die. While this sounds horrifying today, such punishments were not completely unheard of during the medieval period. Archaeologists have sometimes discovered human skeletons hidden inside the walls of old religious buildings, suggesting that in rare cases, such sentences were truly carried out. Facing this dreadful fate, the condemned monk pleaded desperately for mercy. He made an astonishing promise. If the monk spared his life, he would create a book so magnificent that it would bring everlasting fame to their small monastery. He claimed he would gather all the knowledge of the known world into a single volume. The book, he said, would contain the entire Bible, historical records, philosophical teachings, medical knowledge, and scientific ideas known in the medieval world. It would be a library of wisdom written into one single manuscript. But there was one unbelievable condition. He promised to finish the entire book in just one night. Even the fastest and most skilled scribes of the Middle Ages would have needed many years, perhaps even decades, to produce such a work. The monk's promise seemed impossible. Realizing the task could not be completed by human effort alone, the legend says the monk made a desperate choice. In the deep silence of midnight, instead of praying to God, he called upon the devil. According to the story, the devil answered his call. The price for the help was simple, but terrifying: the monk's soul. In exchange, the devil would help him complete the enormous manuscript before the sun rose. However, the devil demanded one condition of his own. His image had to appear inside the book forever. When morning came, the monks opened the monk's cell. Inside, they found the massive manuscript finished. The monk lay beside it, pale and shaking with exhaustion. 3 days later, he died. Legend says that before his death, he kept whispering the same chilling words over and over again. The devil watches over the book, and the book watches him in return. What are the unique features of this book? How is the book perceived for ages? Let's dive into some fascinating details of the book, as explained by Gibson. The Devil's Portrait and the Forbidden Knowledge. For many centuries, the story behind the Codex Gigas was often treated as nothing more than a dramatic legend. Historians, scholars, and curious readers believed the tale belonged more to folklore than to reality. Yet when modern researchers began to carefully study this enormous medieval manuscript, they uncovered details that were far more puzzling than anyone expected. One of the most fascinating discoveries Gibson stumbled upon came from the work of paleographer Michael Gullick, an expert in ancient handwriting. After closely examining the pages of the Codex Gigas, he concluded something extraordinary. The entire book appears to have been written by a single individual. Every page, every paragraph, every letter, over hundreds of pages, seems to come from the same hand. On its own, that finding is already impressive. The Codex Gigas is one of the largest manuscripts ever produced in medieval Europe. Creating a book of such size would normally require the work of many scribes over a long period of time. But what surprised researchers even more was the incredible consistency of the handwriting throughout the manuscript. In normal circumstances, a person's handwriting changes gradually over the years. Small shifts happen naturally as people grow older. Illness, emotional stress, tiredness, or even simple changes in writing tools can all influence the shape and flow of letters. Over time, these differences become noticeable. Yet in the Codex Gigas, almost none of these changes appear. From the first page to the last, the handwriting remains remarkably steady. The letters keep the same shape and rhythm. The spaces between words remain evenly measured. Even the color and thickness of the ink looks strikingly uniform. To many scholars, this creates a strange impression. When looking through the manuscript, it almost feels as if the entire book was written in one long, uninterrupted effort, rather than slowly produced over many years. While historians still believe it must have taken a long time to complete, the visual consistency makes the work seem almost timeless. However, the most famous and unsettling feature of the Codex Gigas is not the writing itself. It is a powerful illustration located near the center of the book. On one full page appears what is widely considered the largest medieval portrait of Satan ever created. In the image, the devil crouches alone in a barren and silent landscape. His skin appears dark green, giving him an eerie, unnatural presence. Two red horns rise sharply from his head. His eyes stare outward with a disturbing intensity, almost as if they follow the reader no matter where they stand. His hands stretch forward, ending in long, claw-like fingers. His mouth is slightly open, exposing sharp teeth and a forked tongue. What makes this image even more unsettling is how it is presented. In most medieval manuscripts, demons were usually surrounded by protective elements, crosses, angels, or sacred words meant to weaken their influence. But in the Codex Gigas, the devil stands completely alone. There are no protective symbols, no angels, no barriers, only empty space around him. Nothing stands between the figure and the reader. Directly facing this page is another full illustration showing the heavenly city of Jerusalem. When the book is opened, the two images sit side by side. One represents darkness and destruction. The other symbolizes light and salvation. Together, they create a powerful visual message, a silent but striking reminder of the eternal choice between two very different paths. Apart from the weird images therein, are there other mysteries did Gibson reveal about the book? What do scholars have to say about it? Let's find out. Missing pages, strange history, and an unfinished mystery. The Codex Gigas is far more than a bizarre legend or the eerie illustrations that have fueled centuries of fascination. Within its massive pages lies a treasure trove of writings that span history, science, religion, and the mystical. At its core is a complete Latin Bible, yet the manuscript is far from merely religious. Interwoven with sacred scripture are the historical accounts of Flavius Josephus, the Jewish historian whose chronicles detail the struggles and triumphs of ancient civilizations. But the Codex Gigas does not stop there. It also contains a sprawling medieval encyclopedia penned by Isidore of Seville. This encyclopedic work delves into nearly every branch of knowledge known at the time, from the patterns of the stars and the principles of mathematics to the complexities of language and the human body. Even medical wisdom from ancient giants like Hippocrates and Galen has been carefully preserved, offering remedies and insights that would have guided healers for generations. Yet amidst these scholarly and sacred texts, there is an unexpected, almost chilling twist. The manuscript holds exorcism formulas and ritual prayers designed to banish demons or cure mysterious illnesses. To the people of the Middle Ages, these were not the workings of dark sorcery, but legitimate spiritual tools sanctioned by the Church. The combination of Holy Scripture, historical treatises, scientific knowledge, and mystical rites produces a curious and enigmatic mixture, a document that is at once scholarly, spiritual, and unsettling. Adding to its intrigue is the mystery of the missing pages. Mel Gibson explained that scholars have long known that at least 12 pages were deliberately removed from the Codex Gigas, likely before the manuscript made its way to Sweden in the 17th century, during the chaos of the 30 Years' War. Some point fingers at Rudolf II, the Holy Roman Emperor, who owned the book in the late 1500s. A man obsessed with alchemy and esoteric knowledge, he may have found certain passages too dangerous or secretive to remain intact. What those pages contained is lost forever, leaving a tantalizing gap in the story of this legendary tome. The manuscript's history is as tumultuous as its contents. Monasteries were burned, libraries were destroyed, and wars raged across Europe, yet somehow the Codex Gigas survived. Through centuries of upheaval, it endured, now resting in Stockholm, shielded behind protective glass, a silent witness to history. Even after 800 years, questions remain. Who wrote it? And how could a single person create something so vast? Why were certain pages removed? And what secrets might they have held? The Devil's Bible, as it is often called, offers no answers. Its silence is complete, but its aura of mystery continues to captivate, inviting each new generation to wonder. What truths, sacred or forbidden, might still be hidden within its ancient, colossal pages? Does the Devil's Bible have a deeper meaning that resonates with the masses beyond its religious meaning? What legacy does the book have outside religion? Let's take a look at the historical and scholarly legacy of Codex Gigas. More than a manuscript. Beyond its religious meaning, the Codex Gigas holds great importance for historians, archaeologists, and language scholars who seek to understand the past. To them, the book is far more than a religious manuscript. It is a valuable historical record that reveals important details about life in the Middle Ages. Every page of the Codex offers clues about the people who created it, the environment in which they lived, and the intellectual culture that shaped their world. Researchers study the ink, parchment, and writing style used in the manuscript to uncover hidden stories about medieval monastic life. The materials themselves provide insight into the resources available at the time. For example, the type of animal skin used for the parchment can reveal the scale of effort and preparation required to produce such a massive book. Creating hundreds of large parchment pages would have demanded significant labor, careful planning, and access to many animals. This alone tells historians that the monastery responsible for the Codex possessed remarkable dedication and organization. The ink used in the manuscript is also a subject of careful study. By examining its chemical composition, scholars can determine the methods and materials medieval scribes used to create durable writing. These small details help experts understand the technological knowledge that existed in monastic communities centuries ago. They also reveal how scribes preserved texts for generations, long before modern printing methods existed. Another fascinating area of study is the scribal style, the handwriting itself. The shapes of letters, the spacing between lines, and the decorative elements all provide clues about the person who wrote the manuscript. Scholars compare these writing patterns with other manuscripts from the same era to identify regional styles and influences. Through such comparisons, researchers can learn how ideas, artistic traditions, and educational practices spread between monasteries across medieval Europe. Beyond the technical details, the Codex also offers a window into the daily life of monks who lived during that time. Monasteries were not only places of prayer, but also centers of learning and preservation of knowledge. Monks spent long hours copying texts by hand, studying religious writings, and preserving important works for future generations. The existence of such a massive and carefully produced book suggests that the monks who worked on it possessed both patience and deep commitment to their intellectual and spiritual duties. The artistic elements of the Codex Gigas are equally revealing. Decorative initials, carefully structured layouts, and elaborate illustrations demonstrate the strong sense of craftsmanship that medieval scribes possessed. These features were not merely decorative, they reflected a culture that valued beauty in learning. For the monks who produced the manuscript, writing and illustrating sacred texts was both an intellectual task and an act of devotion. The Codex also illustrates an important principle of medieval monastic culture: the close relationship between faith and scholarship. In modern times, religion and academic study are sometimes seen as separate or even opposing pursuits. However, the world that produced the Codex Gigas viewed them very differently. Monks believed that studying scriptures, copying historical works, and preserving knowledge were all part of serving God. Learning was seen as a path to a deeper understanding of faith rather than something that competed with it. Because of this perspective, many monasteries became important centers of education. They collected books, copied manuscripts, and maintained libraries that preserved knowledge through centuries of political and social change. Without the work of these monastic scholars, many ancient texts might have been lost forever. In this way, the Codex Gigas stands as a powerful symbol of a time when spiritual devotion and intellectual curiosity worked side by side. It reminds modern readers that the pursuit of knowledge and the practice of faith were once deeply connected. Far from being opposing forces, they were seen as partners in the search for truth, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of the world. So what do you think about Gibson's revelation on the Devil's Bible? Did you ever imagine that the book could be real? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.